Gemini, a mirror, desire, jealousy, and hidden influence. Have you ever wondered how your mere presence can unravel someone's carefully constructed emotional walls? Without you even knowing? There's something in your voice, in the way your thoughts leap between lightness and depth, that catches people off guard. They think they're simply intrigued. But what begins as curiosity often spirals into something far more consuming. And while you go about your life, open-hearted, expressive, full of possibility, someone close to you is quietly falling apart. Their thoughts are tangled in your laughter. Their heart aches in the spaces between your words. What you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a window into the emotional storm you've stirred in someone else's soul. You've touched something raw, something unresolved. They don't know whether to step forward or disappear completely. But you, dear Gemini, you hold a rare kind of power, and with it, a sacred responsibility. In this video, we'll travel deep into the unseen realms of connection and emotional impact. If you've ever felt like you affect people more than they admit, you're right. Take a deep breath, open your heart, and if this resonates with you already, consider liking, sharing, or subscribing. There's so much more you're meant to understand, and so much more healing that can come from simply seeing what was hidden. Gate 1, the emotional storm you never knew you caused. Gemini, your nature is light, mercurial, spontaneous. You are ruled by Mercury, the messenger, the mind, the breath between words. And yet, beneath your charming wit and playful curiosity, there's a gravity few recognize. You don't enter lives quietly. Even in silence, your presence hums. Even in absence, you echo. Right now, someone is caught in your orbit, and they're unraveling. As you're watching this, they're staring at a message they'll never send, deleting and rewriting confessions, avoiding your gaze in public while memorizing your every move. They aren't sleeping well, not because of what you did wrong, but because of the effect your presence has had on them. It was never a plan. You never asked for this kind of influence, but it happened anyway. Gemini, you've awakened something in them, an ache they don't have the tools to soothe. This isn't about attraction or infatuation. It's obsession born not of fantasy, but of emotional vulnerability. You were a mirror they didn't expect, reflecting back their deepest yearning and also their greatest fear, that they will never be truly seen, and yet they were, by you. You asked them about their dreams, and you meant it. You laughed at a story they'd buried in childhood. You listened not just with your ears, but with your whole self. And that, Gemini, was a moment you unknowingly stepped into their heart. They felt understood in a way that shattered their defenses. And now, they cannot go back to pretending that kind of connection doesn't exist. To the outside world, nothing has changed. But inside this person, there's a war waging between longing and silence, between the hope you might feel the same and the fear that you never even notice them. You've ignited desire, yes, but also jealousy, pain, doubt. They watch the way you light up around others and wonder, do you see them too? Did you ask them the same questions? Laugh that same way. Gemini, you are not responsible for their feelings, but you are the spark that lit the fire. This isn't about guilt. It's about awareness. What you see is casual connection. They feel as sacred intimacy. And the paradox is, you were just being you, authentic, radiant, full of presence. But this is not just about them. It's also about you, because there's a lesson here that only you can integrate. When your energy is scattered, people can get lost in the space between your words. When your attention shifts, some hearts are left holding moments they thought meant everything. And it's not your fault. Truly. Yet now that you know, you can begin to hold your own power more consciously. The first step in healing for both of you is presence, not performance, not guilt, just the courage to be honest. Have you felt a shift lately? A strange intensity in the air around someone? The way they linger a second too long? The way their energy changes when you speak? Gemini, this is your opportunity to tune in, to stop running from the emotional layers you often skip. The truth is, you hold more influence than you realize. You touch lives deeply, even when you don't mean to. And somewhere, someone is waiting, not just for you to notice them, but for you to understand what you've awakened. Let this be a gentle awakening. for both your heart and theirs. Gate 2, the unspoken chaos behind their silence. Gemini, have you ever felt the weight of someone's gaze without looking up? The air around you feels different, heavy, like it's trying to say something words never could. That's not your imagination. It's energy, and someone is carrying yours like a haunting memory they can't put down. This person is caught in a silent storm of desire, confusion, and restraint. Every time you pass them by, there's a rush of emotion that floods their nervous system like a tidal wave. Their chest tightens. Their breath shortens. They rehearse what they might say to you and never say it. They fantasize about ordinary moments, like you smiling at them in a grocery store aisle, asking how their day was. That's all they want, a soft access to your world. But that gentle dream is now tangled in an exhausting loop of overthinking. One part of them longs to confess everything, to rip off the mask and ask you plainly, do you feel it too? But another part is terrified of your answer. What if the truth is no? What if your light wasn't meant for them? What if they've imagined it all? This emotional limbo has become their prison. And the worst part? You, Gemini, are the only one with the key. You didn't try to seduce. You didn't play games. That's not what this is. You were kind. You looked them in the eye when no one else did. You noticed when they were quiet. You remembered small details. And in a world so quick to scroll past, you lingered. That single act made them feel seen in a way that cracked their armor wide open. Now they can't be around you without trembling inside. You become a paradox to them, both comfort and chaos. They crave your presence like oxygen, but fear it like fire. When you're gone, there's a void. When you're near, there's too much. Every smile you offer someone else cuts deeper than it should. Every conversation you have that doesn't include them feels like a confirmation of what they're most afraid of, that they don't matter to you in the way you've come to matter to them. Their body carries this pain. It wakes them in the middle of the night. It sits with them in silent rooms. They analyze everything, your tone, your words, your pauses, searching for signs that they're not imagining the bond they feel. And in doing so, they're slowly eroding their own peace of mind. You may think, but I've done nothing wrong. And you haven't. But here is where your soul is being called to evolve. Gemini, your energy is sacred. Your presence opens people. And when you speak from your heart, when you laugh in that airy, free-spirited way of yours, some souls interpret as a cosmic yes, even if it wasn't meant to be. The invitation now is not to shrink, not to change, but to become aware. Who have you unintentionally stirred? Who do you sense is struggling with something they'll never say? If you pause and feel into it, you'll know. You've felt it before, the lingering glance, the stuttered goodbye, the way someone's hands tremble slightly when yours are near. And here's the truth you might resist but must hear. You are responsible for your energy, even when your intention was innocent. What will you do with that knowing? You can choose to ignore it. Many do, but avoidance is not peace, Gemini. Ignoring doesn't dissolve energy. It intensifies it. And right now, someone is on the edge of collapse, not because of what you did, but because they never understood what you meant. This is the moment to choose clarity over comfort. This is where emotional maturity meets magnetic power. And you, Gemini, were born to hold both. Gate 3, the quiet jealousy that burns beneath the surface. Gemini, have you ever seen someone smile while their heart was breaking? Watch them nod in agreement while their insides were twisting in silent agony? That's what's happening now, just beyond your awareness. Someone is pretending to be okay, polite, composed, unaffected, while inside, they are unraveling because of what they see you offer so freely to others. What you see as friendly, inclusive, kind-hearted, they experience as piercing. You share your stories, your sparkle, your spontaneity with the world, but they crave something exclusive, something that would tell them they are different in your eyes. And when they don't see that, when they watch you laugh with others the way you laugh with them, an ancient pain rises, the pain of feeling replaceable. This jealousy isn't loud or manipulative. It's quiet, corrosive, hidden behind polite smiles and casual questions. They're not trying to control you, but their mind is racing. Every interaction you have becomes a threat. Every name you mention feels like a competitor. Every delay in your response becomes an imagined rejection. They're caught in a loop of comparison, and no matter how much logic they apply, their emotions won't settle. They know it's not fair. They know you owe them nothing, but the ache won't go away. You didn't ask to be a mirror, but you became one. And now, this person is being forced to confront parts of themselves they didn't know existed. Their insecurity, their fear of being invisible, their longing to matter deeply to someone who doesn't seem to need them. You can create these wounds, Gemini, but your presence illuminated them, and that in itself is powerful. So what now? You might be tempted to shrink your energy, to become smaller, quieter, less magnetic, so you don't hurt anyone. But that's not the path of healing. That's suppression, and suppression only breeds shame. The wiser path is awareness, compassion, boundaries with grace. You were born to be multifaceted, Gemini, to love freely, to connect widely, to speak with a voice that touches many. But you were also born to learn how to discern, who can handle your frequency, who is grounded enough to admire your light without trying to cage it. Because someone around you is trying quietly to claim you, not out of love, but out of fear. They don't want to lose you to a world they feel they can't compete with. And so they carry this jealousy like a secret illness, ashamed of it, but unable to cure it. It makes them doubt themselves, doubt you, and doubt the possibility of a real connection at all. They start building stories in their head about who you're with, what you feel, what you're hiding. The stories aren't true, but the pain they feel is. And here's the invitation for you now. Can you hold space for their humanity without compromising your freedom? Can you be both powerful and kind, present and honest? Can you see the wounded part of them, not to fix or carry, but to understand? This is emotional responsibility, Gemini, not to take on someone else's journey, but to walk your own with enough awareness to avoid leaving wreckage behind. Because whether you realize it or not, someone is reorganizing their entire emotional reality around the gravitational pull of you. And you, dear soul, are no longer just a fleeting presence in their life. You become a storm system, and they are standing in the eye of it. Gate 4, the threshold between longing and collapse. Gemini, there comes a point in every silent love story where the silence becomes unbearable, where yearning, once romantic, begins to feel like suffering. That's where this person stands now, at the edge between holding it all in and finally breaking. They no longer know who they are around you. They rehearse 100 versions of themselves before every interaction, then abandon them all the moment you speak. They dream of confessing, of breaking the spell of ambiguity, of finally hearing the truth from your lips. And yet, every time they almost say something, they freeze. Why? Because they know that once the words are spoken, everything changes. They're terrified that revealing their feelings will not bring them closer to you, but push you away, that you'll become cautious, distant, polite, that the playful spontaneity you've always shared will be replaced by polite awkwardness or, worse, pity. To them, your connection is still pure because it's unspoken, and yet the pain of keeping it inside is beginning to poison their peace. Gemini, what they need isn't performance or promise. What they need is truth, not a dramatic revelation, not a declaration of love, just clarity, just something real to hold on to or to finally let go of, because right now they're stuck in limbo, and it's starting to wear down their sense of self. But this is not just about them anymore. This moment, this energetic standoff, is calling you into a deeper version of yourself. You've always been a dancer between worlds, Gemini, the visible and the invisible, the known and the curious. You know how to navigate ideas, how to dodge emotions with cleverness and wit. But this isn't a debate. This is soul territory. This is where your choices start shaping other people's realities, not just your own. And here's the truth. Emotional magnetism is not neutral. It's sacred. When someone becomes attached to your frequency, when their emotional safety is tied to how you treat them, your casualness can begin to feel like cruelty, not because you're unkind, but because you're unaware. And now you are aware. This person's internal collapse is not your fault, Gemini, but it is now your mirror. What does your reflection show you? Have you been spreading pieces of your presence, without realizing who's trying to catch every crumb? Have you been giving almost intimacy to someone who's starving for the whole truth? Because when you blur the line between friendship and soul connection, between lighthearted charm and emotional resonance, someone always pays a price. And often, that someone is not as emotionally agile as you. They're not trying to trap you. They're trying to understand you. But your duality is exhausting for them. They don't know which version of you is real. The one who listens so deeply they feel seen for the first time, or the one who drifts away just as quickly, laughing with someone else, as if nothing ever passed between you. This is the paradox you live in, Gemini. You bring connection everywhere, but intimacy nowhere unless you choose it. And now, the universe is asking you to choose, not necessarily them, but clarity, alignment, accountability. Can you look someone in the eyes and say, I know you feel something, and I honor it. I didn't mean to lead you here, but I see you now, and I won't disappear into ambiguity. Because the truth is, if you stay silent, this person will create their own story, and it will break their heart in ways you'll never witness. They'll disappear not out of rejection, but to survive the storm of their own unanswered questions. And you'll be left wondering why they pulled away, never realizing they were waiting for you to simply see them. This is your threshold, Gemini, the edge between unintentional influence and conscious presence. What will you do now? Gate 5, when influence becomes healing and power meets responsibility. Gemini, you've spent your life dancing through conversations, lighting up rooms, igniting minds. Your gift is your brilliance, your ability to shift energy, to awaken possibility, to breathe life into stillness. But now you're being asked to grow into a new gift, presence with purpose. Someone has been orbiting your world, quietly unraveling in your gravitational field, not because you did anything wrong, but because your light, unfiltered, reached into a place they didn't know was still raw. And now, it's time to decide what you will do with that awareness. Because true magnetism isn't just about attraction, it's about alignment. And what you align with now has the power to heal or to haunt. This is your moment, Gemini, the moment you choose to meet energy with intention. Will you continue moving through connections as wind through leaves, never pause and see which ones fall behind you? Or will you stop just long enough to acknowledge the impact you've made? This person doesn't need you to save them. They need you to see them, to recognize that their suffering wasn't born from your cruelty, but from your absence at a critical emotional moment. And now, by simply being honest, by honoring their experience without taking it on as your burden, you can offer what most people never give, emotional clarity. And clarity is the beginning of healing. You don't have to feel what they feel. You don't have to reciprocate. You only have to be real, because realness is a kind of intimacy too. Gemini, you're being initiated into a new level of emotional power, the kind that doesn't just entertain or enchant, but liberates. And it starts with simple acts: a pause before you speak, a deeper listening when someone stumbles through their words, a willingness to sit in silence with another's discomfort without trying to fix or flee. That's where the shift happens, because you're no longer just someone who sparks feelings. You're becoming someone who understands a fire, someone who can say, I didn't mean to cause this pain, but I see that I did, and I care. That moment of acknowledgement, however brief, can unravel months of confusion for someone. It can break the cycle of jealousy, longing, and despair. It can set them free, and it will set you free too. Free from the karmic web of unintentional entanglements. Free from the guilt of not knowing how to carry what you never meant to hold. Free to move forward as someone whose words and presence are no longer just magical, but also mindful. You were never meant to dilute your brilliance, Gemini, but you were meant to direct it. Not toward everyone, not all the time, but with sacred precision. Because when your energy is focused, when your words are chosen with care, your impact becomes medicine instead of mystery. And that, dear Gemini, is where your true power lies. This moment is not about romance. It's about responsibility. Not the kind that weighs you down, but the kind that elevates you. So take a breath. Ask yourself, who have I touched more deeply than I realized? Who around me might be hurting in silence because I've been too quick to move on? And then Just once, reach back, not to fix, not to claim, just to say, I see you, and I honor the truth between us, even if it can't become more. That one gesture could be the healing they've been waiting for. And in that moment, Gemini, you become not just a cause of transformation, but the guide. Conclusion, when awareness becomes liberation. Gemini, you began this journey unaware of the ripple your energy created in another's emotional ocean. A glance, a laugh, a moment of genuine presence. Simple gestures to you, but seeds of longing for someone else. You didn't mean to stir anything, and yet you did. What you come to see is this. Your light is not neutral. It illuminates, it ignites, it awakens. But now you know, and now that you know, you are free to choose. Free to honor what's been stirred without guilt. Free to offer compassion without compromise. Free to step into a new identity. One that blends the brilliance of your mind with the depth of your heart. Someone may never find the words to tell you what you've meant to them, but you've heard it now. Through the silence, the tension, the emotional storm they tried to contain. And perhaps you recognize the signs in someone's nervous smile, their hesitation, their eyes that never quite meet yours. You don't have to fix what's been stirred, but you can meet it with grace. You can choose to speak, not to confess, but to clarify. You can choose to listen, not to absorb, but to understand. And in doing so, you become the kind of person who not only changes lives, but elevates them. This is your awakening, Gemini. The gift of your duality has always been your power, to hold both shadow and light, detachment and depth. But now, you're learning to use it consciously, with care, with wisdom, with presence. You are no longer a drifting wind. You are a directed force. So as you move forward, pause just once in a while. Ask, am I holding my power with kindness? Am I leaving confusion where I could offer clarity? And above all, remember this. Being deeply felt is not a crime. Stirring emotions is not a mistake. But ignoring the impact of your presence is a missed opportunity for healing. You are ready now to be magnetic and mindful, expressive and anchored, curious and kind. You are ready to be whole. If this message touched something within you, something unnamed, something long held in silence, share it. Speak on it in the comments below. Sometimes what we cannot say out loud, we can write. And in doing so, we heal together. Like, share, and subscribe if you feel called. Not because you must, but because somewhere out there, another Gemini is learning to walk the same path. And your presence here becomes their guide.